Hi friends, it's Becky and I have a tutorial for you today using some SilverSilk Flatmesh, some SilverSilk Pearlesque chain, and these chakra beads that I got from the SilverSilk pop-up shop. As soon as I saw these, I knew immediately what I wanted to do with them. They are just these beautiful gemstones that have been cut into faceted triangles. So I'm going to be using those along with some of these crystal rondelles. They are 3 by 5 millimeters and they all have a baby finish on them. I've got a light purple, dark blue, aqua, green, yellow, orange, and red ones of these. I've got a graduated amount of here because the idea that I want to share with you is that I'm going to be using these crystal silver lined 11-0 seed beads, and I'm going to stitch along one edge of these, the hematite flat mesh that I'm using here. If you've never seen SilverSilk or the products that they have, this is Flatmesh, and it is a knitted wire that it was knitted into a tube and then flattened out, and it's a really great base for stitching onto or for using in your jewelry design. It's a great substitute for regular chain in a design, and I really like using it. This hematite color is one of my go-tos. It is in the always in stock or the what is it? Just the stock colors of the site, the website, which I will link in the description below if you want to check out SilverSilk and more. This is not in the stock section of the website because this is some Pearlesque chain that I actually bought last year, and I've used some of it in some of my designs last year, but I still have it in my stash, and it is just perfect to go with this. It's just this rainbow colored tinsel that has been knitted around a silver ball chain, and then you have some silver wire that is knitted around that. So you get this really multi-layered effect with all of these in here, and this is going to be part of my design. So let me show you what the design is going to be. I would like to, again, we're going to stitch some seed beads onto, this is the flat mesh right here. I'm going to stitch some seed beads onto the bottom of here, and then I'm going to do a graduated fringe with all of my chakra beads down there, and then around the back we're going to be connecting using some of these larger jump rings and the SilverSilk findings. So we'll be joining the Pearlesque chain that I just showed you with the flat mesh that I am going to be stitching all together to make kind of a 2-strand choker necklace with both of these and then with these beads hanging down from below. So I'm going to get these guys out of the way, and we'll get the seed beads open, and we will get our needle because we are going to be stitching with some beading thread and a beading needle onto this flat mesh. And I'm using 6-pound Fireline for this, so we'll get that set. Again, let me just move these out of the way so that they are not taking up too much space while I get this ready. And I will list the each of these items and the quantities that you would need to do this in the description below if you want to read it and make something similar. But I love this strand of beads. I made a design last year with a similar kind of chakra set, only they were half moon instead of triangle. It's one of my favorite bracelets. It was part of one of my bracelet bash videos, and I'll link to that video in the description if you want to watch that. But I'm going to go ahead and snip this off of its strand. I am going to keep these tassels though because they are just fantastic, fun tassels, and I will find something fun to use them with. I love getting bonus tassels with my gemstones. It is always so much fun. I'm just snipping the wire away from the loop here. All right, I'm going to go put those away. That's not going to be part of the design. But now I've got my chakra beads These spacers probably will not also be part of the design though, so I'll need to move them out of the way. But let's get our 15-0 seed beads. And I've already pre-cut 15 inches of this flat mesh and taken care of some of the loose edges that you get on that flat mesh. So it's ready to go. I'm going to need some room on either side for the clasps and for the crimps to go on, so I'm not going to be stitching the whole thing, but I'll show you where to kind of estimate where to stop and start. And we'll also go through, as I do it, how to figure out the middle and go out from there to where you can begin your the fringe. Now the tools, when I actually do get around to putting all of this together, I am going to be using some flush cutters. That's how you cut the flat mesh. And then I've got some chain nose pliers that I'll be using for opening and closing jump rings. But that's going to be about it for tools. I do also really like using my flat nose pliers for closing my my SilverSilk findings. It's just a little bit gentler on them, but you can use chain nose pliers if you don't have flat nose pliers. All right, so I've got my SilverSilk ready to go. Just scooch in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. You see you've got all of those little spaces, the knits over here along the edge of this. I'm going to give myself about a ½ inch of space from the edge, and then I'm going to take my needle. I'm just going to go through this real quick like that. This is just going to get my thread attached, and I've got a wingspan's worth of thread on this needle. You hold your arms out, and that is the length that you're going to. I'm just going to do a real quick knot just to keep this from unraveling while I get started. I'm going to go through a loop and then do another quick go through this loop twice, like when you're tying a square knot. There we go. All right, and I'm going to be brick stitching along the edge of this flat mesh. So to start, I'm going to pick up one 11-0 seed bead, move it down towards my flat mesh, and right now at the beginning there is a lot of thread that kind of gets in the way, but that's okay. It will get easier as you go. And I'm just going to grab the end of this thread and put it through my seed bead like that. There we go. And pop that right on down there. That's going to sit much nicer against the edge right here on the end. All right, and now I can pick up another 11-0 seed bead, and I'm coming through this knit stitch right here. I'm just going to go through the edge again, about one knit stitch away. One of the nice things about this flat mesh is each of these, the spacing between each of these, it's about right for an 11-0 seed bead. Something I noticed when I first got it and first had an idea of stitching onto the flat mesh. Okay, so I went through that. Now I need to go back up through that 11-0. That's going to anchor it onto here. Like I said, it's a really great base to start doing some stitching with seed beads on. So I've got both of those on there. I'm going to pick up another one. I'm going to do 2 more with you, and then we'll turn this off and I will continue on until I've got the entire thing stitched. I'm going to just go through the wire next to it. And then back up through that seed bead from bottom to top. There you go. And it is just stitched right on there. We'll get the next one. I told you I was going to do 2 more. 1 more. right through that knit stitch. And up through that bead. Alright, so what I'm going to continue doing is I'm going to stitch the edge of this flat mesh with these 11-0 seed beads until I have about a ½ inch left on this end, because again we're going to need some room for doing our crimps on here in order to finish it. So once I'm there on the end, I will come back to y'all, and it's entirely possible that I might need to add more thread. If I do, I will go back through my, you know what, why don't I come back when and if I get to the point where I need to add more thread. I think though for 15 inches my wingspan is going to do for stitching this on. I'm not going to need to add anything else to that. Anyway, I will be back to you once I've got all of my 11-0s along the edge of this flat mesh. Alright friends, so I have stitched these 11-0 seed beads all along the edge of this flat mesh from end to end, and I've left a little bit of space, about that ½ inch of flat mesh available. This is my beginning area where I had that one knot that I pulled through the 11-0 seed bead. I'm going to grab actually my thread burner and just go ahead and burn this off. It doesn't need to be woven in or anything on this end, just so it's nice and out of the way, and we have a cleaner edge over there. And then I'll show you how to finish off this end here. That is the last seed bead that I put on right there. And I've still got a little bit of thread left here, not enough to go and do the rest of this with. We will be adding another piece of thread in order to do my fringe. But I'm coming up out of this last 11-0 seed bead. I'm going to go through the flat mesh right next to the seed bead, not over a little ways like I have before with the other ones, but I just want to get a little bit more of a thread anchor there on the end of that seed bead, just to keep it from floating away all wonky. I'm going to go back through that seed bead, and that's going to give me a firmer little end to that. And then I'm going to go through about 5 of these seed beads, just weaving my way in and out, up and down. So I go up one seed bead and then down the next. Like I said, about 5 of them in this direction. And then I'm going to go turn it about, reverse it, and go back through those same 5 seed beads. And this is just going to put a little extra tension onto this thread so that it won't easily unwind. And then I'm just going to go through the flat mesh like this, so that that's not right next to the bead. Use my thread burner. Since I'm using the smoke colored thread, it blends in really well with the hematite flat mesh, so you can't even see that thread. Alright, now we are going to be stitching these on as fringe along the middle of this bedazzled flat mesh, and I need a new piece of thread, so I'm going to grab some more of this fireline, and let's just go ahead and go with about a wingspan. And let's get this threaded. And it's always a little bit nerve-wracking doing this on camera, but I think we can manage it. going to just get my thread. I flattened it out a little bit. Got it down here, pinched right there next to my fingers. And then I'm just going to wiggle my needle onto it. Needling the thread instead of threading the needle. And for some reason, I cannot pull it through the hole in this needle. There we go. That's much better. All right, so now that I've got my thread, the next thing I need to do is find the middle of this. The easiest way to do this is to match up my ends. And I don't want to bend this in half because it will leave a crease in the flat mesh, but that's about the middle right there, this seed bead here. So I'm going to go through it from flat mesh towards the end, and I'm going to leave about half of my thread coming out of this. It'll be a tail, a really long tail, because I'm going to work from the center out in one direction and then come back and put my needle on the other end of my thread here and do work from that direction the other way. So I'm going to be doing that. Let me just make sure that I've got my thread. Let's scooch out just a little bit. My thread in half. It doesn't have to be an exact half, but you know what? I am pretty good at estimating. Look at that. I don't have to go any further. Now I don't want this coming out while I'm doing it, so I'm just going to kind of stop bead this by going back through that one center bead one more time, and I can pull this thread out so that it's no longer, when I come back to do the other half, I can pull this thread out of there, or I can leave it. It's not really visible right now, and it probably won't be. But I'm going to start my first dangle, and I'm going to start from here in the center with my green triangle and my green rondelles there, my crystals. So I'm coming out of this 11-0 here, and for direction, up is going to be towards the flat mesh and down is going to be towards me. If you turn it around the other way, you may have up be away from the flat mesh and down be towards you. So it's just going to be whatever direction you are comfortable holding it in when you're doing this. But I'm going to be holding it this way, and I'm coming up out of this seed bead in the down direction towards me. So I'm going to pick up 3 11-0s. I'm just using the same color 11-0s that I started with, and then a rondelle, and then 3 more 11-0s. 1, 2, 3, and another rondelle, and I picked out 4 of these rondelles for this center green one, and then 3 11-0s and another rondelle, 3 11-0s, and I'm keeping this patterning simple and repetitive and fairly easy to adjust for the length of these. All right, I'll get this moved down here so you can see where we're at so far. Like that. This is going to be the longest dangle on my fringe. I need 3 more 11-0s. So I've got 3 11-0s between each of the crystal rondelles and between that last crystal rondelle and my gemstone triangle. And I'm going to go through my triangle. You can either go through the triangles with them all pointing in the same direction, or maybe you might turn them, you know, alternate them so they're some are pointing up and some are pointing down. It all depends on how you want to do it. I'm going to string these with all of them with my pointing down away from the necklace. So I'm going to go through the long side. Well, they're all probably about equidistant. But it's the side that has, it's not the point of the triangle. So we're going to go through there. And then I want to be able to anchor this dangle. So I'm going to pick up a 11-0, and I'm going to sew back through all of these beads and back up through this one bead on the flat mesh. So I'm not going back through the 11-0, I'm just going through every other bead on this strand, because the 11-0 is going to anchor it. It's going to keep it dangling on this strand. And this might take some finagling with your needle. You might not get through all of them in one pass. In fact, this is pretty long and I don't have a grip on my needle anymore, so I am going to need to do this in a couple of passes to try and get these first ones here, and then keep going up. With the shorter ones, that'll be a little bit easier. But you also want to make sure you're not skipping any beads when you go up through here, because then it hangs wonky from experience. Alright, so I'm going to go back through that same 11-0 that I was coming out of. I'm going to go up through that 11-0 towards the flat mesh. There we go. Make sure that that's nice and even. You don't want it to be too tight, but you don't want it to be super loose either. All right, and I want there to be about 8 seed beads space between each of my fringes. So I'm going to go through the next 11-0 down towards me, and then up towards the flat mesh, and then down towards me. And I'm just going to the next 11-0 and the next 11-0 and the next 11-0 until I've moved 8 11-0s over. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm counting the one that I had as my first one, so that's 1. And then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So every 8 11-0s we're going to be doing one of these. 6, 7, and this is moving the thread over to that next 11-0 that we want the fringe to come out from. There we go, so that's 8. And I'm ready to do my next dangle. And so I'm going to do the next one over here, because we're going to get these guys. Actually, let me move them out of the way so that I'm not bumping into them while I'm working on this. Because we'll come back and do those when we pick up this thread from the other side. So we've got this one. Let's go ahead and add these others. And for these, it'll be exactly the same. 3 11-0s and a rondelle. 3 11-0s and a rondelle. All the way until we get to the gemstone. So pretty easy. I want to keep it, I want to keep it easy on this. It doesn't have to be complicated to look pretty. You can make beautiful things the easy way. One, 2, 3. There we go. And 3 more. 1, 2, 3. All right. And now we're going to go through the gemstone. So I started with 4 rondelles for the center one, rondelles for the next one over. This one will have 2, and then the one on the very end will have 1. And that's how we get our graduated fringe. It'll just get progressively shorter as we go further away from the center. Alright, so I've got this guy. I'm going to pick up my anchor bead, my 11-0, and go back through this whole thing if I can. If I miss a bead, I'll just go back out and do it again. Or if I have to do it a couple of beads at a time, and actually I think I'm just going to go through those and then do those last couple. It is a pretty long stretch of bead area to try to fit my entire needle through. So nothing wrong with doing it in two passes or 3 passes, or just do a few beads at a time. There we go. And then we go back through that same 11-0 that we were coming out of, back towards the flat mesh. Let's give it a little bit of a tug to straighten it out again so that it has some drape. I don't want it to be too tight. And now we're going to go over to 8 beads away. So this is number 1. This will be number 2. And we're going to zigzag through these beads. 2, 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so now that we're coming out of this one, let's do the same thing, but with these 2 rondelles and this dark lapis triangle. So 1, 2, 3, and a rondelle, and then 1, 2, 3, and a rondelle, and 3 more, and my gemstone triangle. All right, now let's grab our anchor bead. It's the 11-0, and go back up through this whole line of beads. And this one I could probably go through all the beads in one pass. Let's find out. Not too great so far. Sometimes it helps if you straighten out the beads first, or hold some tension in the thread. But I am not holding great tension in that thread right now. And I go back into that same 11-0 we were coming out of on the flat mesh, towards the flat mesh. Let's make sure that that is gonna dangle. So far so good. I like it, I like it. And 8 more beads along. So that's 1, 2. Ooh, I went through this 11-0 down here accidentally. I'm gonna back that out. There we go. Okay. So 2, 3, and this is looping around that. 3. There we go. And there we go. 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. There we go. This thread is kind of getting in my way a little bit. I'm just moving it in that direction. There we go. That makes me happy. And 8 is like just the perfect amount of beads to still have a little bit of space between them so they're not jostling along on as they dangle. So I am happy with my my estimating skills on that. So I'm picking up my 3 11/0s for this one. I've only got one rondelle that I'm putting on this end gemstone fringe strand, so 3 more 11/0s after we get that on there. And now we can go through this amethyst triangle and grab my anchor bead. Sometimes this is how I put some tension on it to make it easier for it to stay straight. So I wrap it around my finger and kind of squeeze it here between my ring finger and my pinky. You don't have to squeeze hard to get that tension held. Just keep it between those 2 fingers while you do this. That's all you gotta do. There we go. Right back through there. Got looped around the fringe. There we go. All the way around. There are some angles that make it a little easier for things to get caught, but overall it looks like we did pretty good. And I'm just going to weave in this end of my thread. Going to zigzag through my seed beads. I'm not going to be doing any more fringe on this side of the necklace, but I am going to go through these seed beads, a couple that way, and then back it up and go back through the opposite direction. Keep the thread from unraveling on me as it's being worn. Right. And there we go. We're going to do the same thing here that we did with the end. I'm just going to burn off my excess thread. So that's that half done. Now I'm going to grab my needle and thread this other end of my thread, the thread that I had left coming out of there. I might see if I can just work that loop loose. If I can't, it's fine. You know what? You can't even see the loop, so it does not need to be worked loose. I am going to need to have the needle go through that direction though. So I'm just flipping this over so I can work this direction without these guys getting in the way, because I am right-handed. All right, I need to get this in the correct order that I want it to be in. So we're going to start with our lemony yellow guys. This is kind of a brighter orange, but that's okay because we've got, you know, a brighter blue over here. And I do like some bright rainbowy colors. There we go. Thread. Alright, and the reason I'm going through this bead in this direction is so that I can reverse this correctly. Oop. So I'm coming out there. I want to be coming out, going down this way. So down one more time. Yes, okay. Oh, wait, no, because we went back up through it. That's right, okay. So 1, 2. Sorry, I had to make sure that I was getting this oriented the correct way. 2, 3. 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm catching on the tool. There we go. Let's move that. All right. And you know what? Doing it that way actually did help remove that extra loop that I had at that center one. All right. So 3 11-ohs. Let's pick this up. 1, 2, 3. One, 2, 3. And then the rondelle. And then 1, 2, 3, and the gemstone. And go towards the point. So we're coming out of the point. Oop. Now we'll grab our anchor bead and go back through. This is another way to hold the tension, is just to hold the thread with one hand while you go up through your fringe with the other. And I'm not as practiced at this as some other beaders. Usually I hold these things in my hands instead of on my bead mat, but I thought I'd do that here. So it might be easier for you guys to see how that was going. Right, I'm coming out of the rondelle. All right, so up through these 3. 1, 2, 3, and the one that we're coming up out of. Make sure we don't hook on anything. Give a little tug to make sure that it will swing free. Won't be too tight. I think it's a little bit of a balance between too tight and too loose on fringe. All right, so that's 1, 2, 3, counting with Becky, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 1, 2, 3, and rondelle, and then 1, 2, 3, and a rondelle, and we've got 2 rondelles on this one, because we are decreasing as we go towards the edges. 1, 2, 3, and my gemstone triangle. look great together. I love that. Now let's get our anchor bead. Go back through this guy. I can actually hold that in my hands while I do this one. Oh, I missed just one. And it is this one right here. I can go back up through here. Sorry. Okay. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Let's get 3 11-ohs, this rondelle, 3 11-ohs, and the gemstone. Two, 3. It's dangling and pulling itself all sorts of fun directions. It's alright though, I can wrangle it. Alright. Then you've got a loop like this. If you pull the bottom bead out while also pulling up on the thread, it'll take care of those little loops that get stuck between those beads. Alright, so now I'm going to do the same thing on this side that I did on the other end. I'm going to go over a few beads, my little zigzagging through them. Down and up, down and up. Just move a few beads away. And reverse it and go back in the opposite direction. Go back up through this bead and then through the flat mesh. Like that. My thread. Oop. And now thread burner. And now to finish this part, it won't be the completed necklace, but it will be finishing the flat mesh bit. I'm going to grab those findings that I was showing you earlier. These are the flat mesh findings. They are made by SilverSilk. And they are, the flat mesh findings have these little teeth that grab onto the flat mesh when you crimp them closed. Sort of the way ribbon ends have teeth, but these are these kind of square teeth instead of like the jaws teeth. All right. And so for this, like I said, I wanted to use these guys. So part of this is going to be prepping the end to put that into. So I find that I've already cleaned off the ends, because often when you snip the ends, you might have a couple of disconnected loops of wire that are still kind of dangling. You can clean those off. I've already done that. And now I'm going to just take the end of my flat mesh, just maybe 1/4 centimeters worth. I'm going to press it flat with my pliers there, and then bend it over. Press it flat. You don't want to press too hard, but you know, making it flat enough that it will fit in there. And I'm just going to do one more bend right here. And keep it within that same size. And this little lump of wire is going to fit perfectly right here in the flat mesh crimp. Just like that. And then I'm going to take the crimp itself and give it a squeeze with my white nose pliers. Do a tug test to make sure it's gonna stay. And sometimes you'll have little bits of wire sticking out. I don't, so I'm pretty happy with that. And I'm gonna do that to the other side now too. That's how you finish a flat mesh end. All right. So one little smush and a bend. A little smush. I like to tuck in the edges like that. Just square it up. You know, squeeze real hard when you do this. I'm just tucking it. And then another little bend. So that's 2 bends. And a smush. Tucking my edges all the way through. I can put this end on here. Hold on, let me make sure that we're on the correct side. Yes, okay, because they have a little logo on one side and not the other. I was just making sure that the logo is facing the same way on each end. There we go. So now we've got this, and you could leave this just like this, attach a clasp to the back, and have a really beautiful necklace. I'm going to add some extra to it using that Pearlesque chain. Love this Pearlesque chain. It's just going to add just another little layer of fun and frivolity with all of that. I'm going to move these out of the way. There we go. All right, so this is fancy ball chain. So like I said, it's ball chain with a layer of tinsel knitted over it with the these fun colors, and then a layer of the wire along the outside. And the ends that we use for this, they've got a little lip on this side that just grabs right between the balls in the ball chain. That's usually 1, 2. And I find with Pearlesque chain, I kind of have to use my fingernail to push the wire in around and between the ball that I want it to be on, so that it'll actually grip well. Sometimes the Pearlesque chain, like the tinsel, kind of gives it too much of an extra layer of something. But once you've got that in there, you can go ahead and close this. And as long as that lip on the inside catches on that ball, the ball chain, it's pretty secure. I'm doing a little tug test to make sure. All right, now this will be the fun part because I am going to be trying to measure how much of this Pearlesque chain I'm going to have on here. Yep. So let's go. All right. And so the cord end goes in about here. So I'm just going to go 2 balls over and snip there. And just using wire cutters is fine. As long as it's cutting between the 2 balls, it just cuts the wire and the tinsel. And this is what I mean by having just some extra little loops of wire when you cut this. It is knitting, which is a series of interconnected loops of some sort. And so I'm just cleaning off those extra bits of wire on there. And let's make sure that we are facing the same way along here. All right, I'm just gonna press in with my fingernail around there. And I usually only do this with Pearlesque chain, not with capture chain. Capture chain just has the ball chain and the wire. It doesn't have the tinsel too. All right, so now that I've got that in there, let's get that. All right, so both of these are now connected there. Let's get these connected on this end. Where you going, buddy? It's just flipping, that's fine. Because it won't do that when it's being worn, it's just doing that now. All right, so I want a jump ring on each of these. To go this way. And then also, whoop, I'm gonna go ahead and close this. I thought I would attach it to something else too, but the other thing that I want to attach it to is also a jump ring, so I'll just open that when I need to attach it to this. All right, so I've got a jump ring on that end. Let's get a jump ring on this end. All right, so these are some smaller 5mm jump rings that I'm just attaching here. And I've got this larger 7mm jump ring. And for this one, yeah, all right. Yeah, I think we're going to go for the Pearlesque chain, the Flatmesh, and the end of this curb chain that's going to be my little extender on that side of my necklace. And then we swing this closed, make sure that's good. And these two will be connected on that end. All right, Now let's do the other end the exact same way, only this time I'm going to be connecting a jump ring to that instead of that extender chain. I do need to grab myself another of these 5mm jump rings though. All right. So yeah, this can be a fun little project if you want to spend some time stitching those beads along and then doing your fringe. You can see the fringe doesn't take very long to add. It just takes a little bit of planning to get the spacing just right. And then the rest of this is just assembling the stuff together. So I'll jump ring on the flat mesh. And a jump ring on here. Right. And then my larger jump ring. And for this, we're going to go through flat mesh and then Pearlesque chain and then lobster clasp. And I did check before I started, and that lobster clasp is good. All right. There we go. We have a pretty rainbow necklace with these gorgeous chakra beads. And all of this was made with items from SilverSilk and more, plus, you know, my findings and those seed beads. And again, those are crystal silver lined seed beads that I used on that. This rainbow Pearlesque chain, I don't think it's still available anymore. It was a pop-up shop item from last year, which I am so glad I got more of because it's just gorgeous and I love it. And then the hematite is one of the stock colors that is always carried at SilverSilk. It is one of my favorites and I love using it for things. I've used it for plenty of other things before now. All right, again, I will put a link in the description below to SilverSilk and more. You can check out the SilverSilk Silkies Facebook group on Facebook if you are on there, where you can see a lot of other designs, little design challenges, and some fun information about the shop. And there is a SilverSilk YouTube channel where there are some really great tutorials. Every Sunday, Neely gets together with some designers and does SilverSilk Sunday, where they just hang out and make stuff together, which is absolutely a blast. I've joined him a couple of times on that. I also have a playlist that has a lot of other projects that I've used SilverSilk in. So if you'd like to watch those and get some more ideas for how to use and how to play around with SilverSilk, please do. This will be part of that as well. Until next time, my friends, happy beading.